It's like a dream come true, a $300 million inheritance and our own company. When the employees saw my sister-in-law, Mary, celebrating my father's inheritance, they began to whisper to each other. The employees were ecstatic, and Mary said triumphantly, "Please be quiet. This is the point which my husband will inherit the company and $3 million. Hearing this, one of the employees began laughing uncontrollably. "What's the deal?" Sitting beside his perplexed wife, my elder brother was reading the will from the lawyer. My brother's face turned pale as he read. "Look at this." When my brother showed her the will, she screamed. Lucy is my name. I'm 29 years old and work for my father's business. When he was young, my father had the foresight to start a business from the ground up. It's since grown to a modest-sized enterprise with many employees. Of course, soon after launching the business, he incurred debt, and even as a small child, I could imagine how difficult it must have been for my father. Even after the company grew, I wanted to help my mother, who mostly did clerical back-office work. My parents encouraged me to attend college and pursue a career of my choosing, but my dream was to work for the company that my father had worked so hard to build. That was the first thing that came to mind when I was considering my career path after graduating from high school. Bob, a veteran employee, was the first person to mentor me when I joined my father's company. Bob patiently taught me the fundamentals of business without looking at me through the lens of being the president's daughter. I was able to learn more about the company thanks to Bob. On the other hand, my brother Tom, who's just 2 years older, went to college to study management. From a young age, he was proud to tell his college friends that his father was running a business and that he would eventually take over the business. Tom's friends would ask, "What are your plans after you graduate from college, Tom? Don't you have to look for work?" "I don't need to look for work because I'll be working for my father's company. I'll eventually be the company's president, so I'll take my time gaining management experience until then." "So you're going to be the next president of the company? Then your life will be safe and secure. I'm jealous of you." One of Tom's friends remarked, "Tom, you have a younger sister as well. Isn't there going to be a fight over who's the successor?" "Younger sister? I do, but she's a high school graduate and a simple person." "That's something you say a lot." "She appears to be doing some behind-the-scenes work for the company. If I become president, I'll keep her on as long as she listens to me." My brother was blowing money and fooling around under the guise of gaining experience as a business manager. He knew that if he behaved well, his friends would flock to him. There was no end to the number of women who wanted to date him because of his position as the company's next president. My brother chose the most flamboyant and attractive woman to marry. Mary was her name. After a lavish wedding, my brother and Mary went on a honeymoon abroad, built a mansion, and began their married life together. This was all done, according to him, to obtain the status of company president. Mary appeared to be content with her life with Tom, who listened to her every wish and allowed her to enjoy all of life's luxuries. I'm sure she wouldn't be interested in a life like mine, one where I work alongside my mother as a humble backstage employee in my father's company. "Lucy, you don't look like the CEO's daughter, do you?" she asked. "You don't appear to be the daughter of the company's president." Mary would often look at me and laugh whenever we met at family gatherings. "I don't like to live a lavish lifestyle," I said. She looked at me as if I were a moron. "I feel sorry for you because you were born as the daughter of a company's president, but you have no idea how to spend money." "What? You live at home with your parents and you have a lot of money, so you don't need to work so hard." Beside, with your title as president's daughter, shouldn't the men be flocking to you?" My brother agreed. "I'm sure that's true. Lucy's always been very modest, so no one would imagine that her father is the president. And apparently, she treats the other employees normally. Not come as a surprise. There are still many things I don't understand about my job. Many of my coworkers are better at their jobs than I am, so I can't act like a big shot," I refuted. But my brother said, astounded, "That's why you're useless. A boss should be able to stand tall so that he's not derided by his subordinates, such as his employees. Allow the other employees to handle the simple, tedious tasks. I suppose my father and I are the only bosses in this house." "You should not look down on your subordinates, no matter how powerful you are. My father, too." My brother cut me off when I tried to respond, looking annoyed and frustrated with me. He said, "A logical woman is not well liked by men." After my brother spoke up, Mary followed. If you keep saying things like that, I'm sure you'll never get married. You should try to make yourself more appealing. Don't you agree, Tom? Yeah, well, when I become president, I might fire a humble employee like you, Tom said. My brother and Mary only said what they needed to say, and they quickly left. My mother, who'd remained silent during this interaction, consoled me after they had gone. She said, "You're doing an excellent job with the company, which greatly helps me and your father. Don't be concerned about what Tom says." My father nodded, a stern expression on his face. My parents had previously expressed their displeasure with my brother's ideas to his face. But after that, my brother and Mary became visibly upset and stopped visiting our house for over a month. I recalled the depressing atmosphere at the time, so I suggested to my parents, "Tom and Mary are free to say whatever they want." After that, Tom and Mary continued to live their lives as they pleased, dining lavishly at high-end restaurants and vacationing at famous resorts. The purpose was to give the impression that Tom would someday be president of my father's corporation. My father was working hard to expand his business at that time, but one night at home, he complained of chest pain. I said, "Dad, are you all right? Try and relax. I'll call an ambulance." "Lucy, get this." While we waited for the ambulance, my father pointed to a drawer and told me he had a letter for me. I quickly took the letter from the drawer. "I want you to read this. If anything happens to me, everything else is up to the lawyers," he said breathlessly before losing consciousness before the ambulance arrived. And despite being rushed to the emergency room, he died without regaining consciousness. My brother and Mary, who were away on a trip, were unable to be there for my father's death. They returned from their trip 2 days later at the conclusion of my father's funeral. Tom said, "We're just glad we arrived on time. I never imagined my father would pass away while we were on vacation." I was completely taken aback. My brother and Mary arrived at the funeral without a care in the world, making no mention of the fact that my mother and I had been left to handle the arrangements. I asked my brother about it in private so that the employees present would not hear. "Couldn't you have arrived home earlier?" "What? I couldn't because I'd already booked our return flight," my brother said, without apologizing, and then addressed the employees. "Thank you all for your help, and please, from now on, leave it to me to take my father's place in an honorable manner." Mary looked around at the employees who had quieted down in response to my brother's words, and she said admiringly, "That's exactly what Tom would do. Everyone is speechless because they're so impressed." "Right? It's only natural given my dignity." Pridefully, my brother asked, "Lucy, isn't the ceremony just about to start? Please hurry and show us the way." I was irritated by my brother's late appearance and his arrogance, but I led him, Mary, and the employees to the meal ceremony party table. My brother continued to act arrogantly as we ate. "Isn't the quality of this food questionable, Lucy? This will degrade our father's standing as president." Mother and I already discussed it, and we came to an agreement on the food. Besides, I don't want you telling me what to do. This is why people have no idea what it means to be president. He gave orders not only to me, but also to the other employees. "Serving other people, you're pointless." I rushed to stop him after hearing him order Bob, a veteran employee, to do his bidding. "Oh, Tom, you're so bold. Don't be impolite to Bob." "What? They're rude people. Why should I be humble in front of a mere employee? These guys ought to have more regard for me, the president." Mary was also getting into the spirit of things, and she charged at me. "That's right. Stop talking down to Tom, the company's president, Lucy. If you continue to disobey him, he'll fire you. He has the authority." A man appeared just as my brother and his wife were blustering on. He said, "Please, excuse my interruption. Your father asked me to look after his inheritance." He was the lawyer my father had retained while he was still alive. Then I remembered. My father had told me shortly before his death that he had already hired a lawyer. It seemed my father had been considering his own death and had spoken with a lawyer several years before he collapsed. My brother and Mary's eyes lit up when the lawyer mentioned inheritance. They gladly welcomed the lawyer into their room. Tom said, "Thank you for attending. The sooner we complete this task, the better. Come on in." But as he spoke with the lawyer, Tom began to sob. "Wasn't my father's inheritance worth $300 million? When Mary heard this, she squealed with delight. $300 million? That much money in a company that belongs to us is a dream come true. When the employees heard this, they began to whisper. Mary triumphantly declared to the mourning employees, "Quiet. This is the moment when the company and its $300 million inheritance pass to Tom." Hearing this, one of the employees began laughing uncontrollably. "What's the deal?" My brother had received the will and was reading it next to Mary, who was wondering what the employees found so funny. My brother's face turned pale as she watched. Mary, according to the will, the entire company will be given to the eldest daughter, to Lucy." He stared at the will for some time and then began shouting, "This is not possible! This is incorrect!" In a troubled tone, the lawyer said, "This is a legally enforceable will." My brother's voice became more and more choked. "What? I couldn't care less. How can Lucy become president instead of me? Perhaps Dad was simply getting old and senile." Yes, your father lacks sound judgment. A will made by a senile old man is null and void." Hearing these words, I completely snapped. I couldn't let these two people insult my late father. I couldn't let anyone, even family members, bring down my father, who was a good man until the end. Enough! My brother Tom becoming president would be even more unthinkable in my opinion. The words infuriated my brother. "What? Are you trying to tell me that I'm unfit to be president?" I responded without hesitation. "You are correct. How can you be president of this company if you've never even helped it?" "Don't be a moron. Mary and I even built a house fit for a president, and we went to great lengths to make me look the part. Do you mean building a mansion unsuitable for a man of your stature or eating at fancy restaurants? That's not good for business. It's only money. After all, didn't Father cover the majority of the costs for the new house and extravaganza?" "How in the world would you know that?" "Just before he died, Dad left me a letter. In the letter, he detailed all the money he had spent on you and stated it would be given to you in a gift during his lifetime. As a result, your share of the estate is practically nothing." Mary panicked when she heard this. "Wait a second. Isn't this inheritance worth $300 million? Did we already spend that much? It's not fair that we got so little out of it." The employee who had just burst out laughing quickly approached Mary and informed her that $300 million comes from the company, not from personal assets. I believe all the employees here are aware of this. "Money from the company? Isn't that something that can be inherited?" I informed Mary it is indeed. The money from the company is not inheritance for the family, so I'm pretty sure my brother's share is negligible. That breaks my heart. "Oh no!" Lucy was completely taken aback. "The inheritance, $300 million. My brother stood up as if he'd had an epiphany, and he yelled at the employees. "You want your company president to be a plain woman like Lucy? You must believe I'm more qualified to be president. I have the same amount of charisma as my father." Not one of his co-workers agreed with him. Bob then took the initiative and began talking with my brother. "Your predecessor, your father, was a charismatic man who founded the company during his lifetime. However, you and he are not the same person." "What?" "What you have is arrogance, looking down on us, not charisma." "What?" My brother became enraged when the employee calmly refuted him. "Tom, you may be an employee of our company, but we, the employees, rarely see you at work." "That's because I don't have time to do any work for the company. I was too busy networking with others. I couldn't have time to do work anyone could do." "You call going on trips and fun at night networking? Isn't that all there is to say?" Bob sighed and went on. "In that regard, Lucy worked hard every day to learn more about the company while performing her unobtrusive, behind-the-scene duties." "Bob." "I sense the same sincerity in her as in your father. Lucy is the right person for the job, according to all of us at the company." The other employees nodded enthusiastically in response to his words. I was moved and responded, "Thank you very much." To be honest, I'm surprised by the suddenness of the news, but having witnessed my father's enthusiasm for the company firsthand, I care about it just as much as you do. I look forward to your continued assistance. The employees warmly applauded as I bowed deeply. Encouraged by the applause, I said firmly, "All of you here are important friends who have helped our business. Anyone who ignores them is unfit to be employee, let alone company's president. You can be fired by the president." My brother became irritated upon hearing this. "What in the world are you on about? I'm your brother." "What exactly are you on about? You even said that if you became president, you would fire me, brother." Ugh. "I can't afford to pay a salary to an incompetent employee simply because he's family. This is completely absurd. Someone, please speak up." With a pitiful expression on his face, he begged for assistance from those around him, but the employees gave him only cold stares. Realizing that no one was on his side, my brother and Mary fled the scene. After that, Tom lost his job and survived on the small inheritance he had received, but the funds quickly ran out. "Can you lend me money, Lucy?" I threw him to the ground. I was disgusted by my brother, who even after being fired, did not try to find a new job and was still relying on his family to help him. I told my mother flatly not to give my brother any money. His friends, who had once been so supportive, abandoned him after learning that he had lost his position as president to his sister. When Mary married my brother, she had been planning to be the wife of the company president, and not a single one of her friends seemed to sympathize with her. When their living expenses became unsustainable, my brother and his wife decided to sell their mansion. The money from selling their house may have allowed my brother and his wife to relax and resume their previous lifestyle. However, without any income, my brother and his wife's savings quickly ran out. When they had nothing left to sell, they could no longer pay their living expenses. When they finally decided to give up and work, no one would hire them because they had never worked a day in their lives. Tom was eventually able to find a part-time job at a convenience store. Now he is working at a convenience store, a job he is unfamiliar with, and has been told that his work is inadequate by other part-time employees who are much younger than he is. Mary, too, can no longer be a full-time housewife like she used to be. She has joined the part-time housewives she used to mock, and she now works as a cashier at a supermarket from morning to night for a low monthly salary. I, on the other hand, am using what I've learned from my behind-the-scenes work to help the company. Bob and the other employees have been working with me, and the company has been steadily growing. My brother's case may have actually strengthened employee unity. I vowed to continue working with my mother to grow the business in order to bring more joy to my Father in heaven.